Hi everyone, and welcome back to another installment of Dragonfly Joes. This is the page, this is the channel where we like to go back and review each of the figures that were re-released with the G.I. Joe franchise starting again in 1982. This is where it really got popular. It was even more popular than the original versions of the G.I. Joe figures that came out a few years before that. And what we have been doing on this page is going through each character in alphabetical order year by year, and we are still in the very first year, the first year of the re-release in 1982. So having gone through a couple of figures already, we are now looking at a figure known as Cobra Commander.
Don't let Cobra Commander get away!
G.I. Joe!
It's Cobra Commander!
You gotta get up early to catch Cobra.
And this is going to be a doozy. There's so much information about this one character. He is a huge character. If you know anything about G.I. Joe, you know about Cobra Commander. In fact, you're going to hear me say his name over and over and over again, trying to describe exactly who he is, because that is the mystery. And so let's get into this, starting with why we need a Cobra Commander. When it was decided that G.I. Joe was going to go to Marvel in order to help promote their figures, a man named Larry Hama was assigned to develop the storylines for the figures and the adventures that they would have. And so one of the basic questions that Hama had was, well, who are they going to fight? Why do we need G.I. Joe, and who was the enemy? And the funny thing is, no one had really thought of that. Now, there's a few stories behind what actually happened, but Larry Hama was toying with the idea of creating something known as the Fury Force in Marvel that was going to be based on Nick Fury and the Avengers. Well, that never really took off, and so he transferred the idea to G.I. Joe when he was given the opportunity to write the characters and the storylines for G.I. Joe. Now, the Avengers and Nick Fury's enemy was known as Hydra. And so when being put on the spot and they didn't know who G.I. Joe was going to fight, the name Cobra, which kind of rhymes with Hydra, was spoken, and no one flinched. It was well received, and it became the name of the ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world. And of course, this organization needed a leader, and this is where the Cobra Commander steps in. Cobra Commander, the figure itself, only came with his Venom laser pistol that plugs into his back. And Cobra Commander version 1 was only available as a mail-in offer in 1982. And this mail-order Cobra Commander was the straight-arm version. And it was also released with the Sears exclusive 1982 Cobra Missile Command headquarters. This set is very hard to find because it was only made of cardboard that you had to put together and very fragile, and so it would be a miracle in order to find one of these intact and without any major damage, because again, it folded up, you put it together, and in order for it to not deteriorate, you had to take very good care of it. And so it's very hard to find one of these still around from 1982. In 1983, Cobra Commander version 1.5 was released, and he was the one with the swivel arm battle grip, and also came as a carded figure, being a part of Series 2. Something else about just the figure itself is that there is a variant to that figure. The very early versions of Cobra Commander version 1 came with a slightly different Cobra sigil on his chest. This version looked a little bit funny, looked a little bit different, obviously different than the logo that we're probably used to seeing, and it's referred to as the Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander because of the fact that the G.I. Joe community looked at this Cobra logo, and the Cobra's eyes really looked more like mouse ears on top of the logo, which hence came the name the Mickey Mouse version. Now, looking at the file card, which each figure came with on the back of the package, again, if you got the mail-in Cobra Commander, it was going to be a little bit different, but it still came with a card. When we read that, we see codename Enemy Leader. File name is classified. His birthplace is classified. His primary military specialty is intelligence. His secondary military specialty is ordnance or experimental weaponry. His grade is considered to be Commander-in-Chief.
I demand you acknowledge the Commander-in-Chief!
This is almost like being the president of whatever organization or whatever nation he was hoping to create. And as we read the description of this character, it says this: absolute power, total control of the world, its people, wealth, and resources. That's the objective of Cobra Commander. This fanatical leader rules with an iron fist. He demands total loyalty and allegiance. Now, besides what we're reading here, we also learn that Cobra Commander becomes excited with power, but he's also very paranoid. He treats all of his subordinates and his servants with no respect and constantly is found yelling at them and even blaming them for failing, even when those failings could be his own. His main battle plan for world control relies on revolution and chaos. He personally led uprisings in the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and other trouble spots, responsible for kidnapping scientists, businessmen, and military leaders, then forcing them to reveal their top-level secrets. Now, every card for every character that we've read so far and will continue to see has a quote, usually from someone else, about the character we're reading, and the quote we read here is, "Cobra Commander is hatred and evil personified, corrupt, a man without scruples, probably the most dangerous man alive." Now, the character of Cobra Commander is very complex because of the many backstories and descriptions that come with the title of Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander is generally the title in the criminal organization known as Cobra, and there was supposed to be one selected every 7 years with an occultish type ceremony where the helmet and the mask is placed on the newly appointed commander. Now, this is very different from the early cartoon versions of G.I. Joe, where Cobra Commander was a very specific person and not just the title. If this is as far as we go with Cobra Commander, then we'd be missing out on so much more. So let's dig a little bit deeper past the general ideas that we probably are most familiar with. Now, by nature, Cobra Commander is supposed to be a mystery, which would suggest that there's much more to know about him. And as we look into the various resources for G.I. Joe and Cobra Commander, we'll start to see just how complex this character is and the variety of directions that we could actually go with him. The very first version of Cobra Commander is revealed in issue number 1 of the Marvel Comics. Larry Hama envisioned the character as being in love with the sound of his own voice, and he found inspiration for this character in William F. Buckley, who was a political conservative with famous debates back in 1968. Cobra Commander in the Marvel Comics started out as a used car salesman, and he eventually became a small businessman and was constantly struggling to be successful. He loses his family in a car accident, including his older brother named Dan, who had enlisted in the military during the Vietnam War, and he also volunteered repeatedly in tours in order to spare his younger brother from being recruited. So when Dan finally came home, he was struggling with alcoholism and post-traumatic stress disorder. And after that accident where Cobra Commander loses his brother, he falls into this madness of revenge and a passion to control the world and turn him into what many consider to be the most dangerous man in the world. He became obsessed with making someone pay for his brother's death. And at his core, Cobra Commander was the little guy who felt like the world was against him, blaming all of his problems on the American social system. And he gained followers who would start to agree with everything he said. Soon, he became their leader. And finally, he was a success, and he was in control. But his power only served to feed his ego. It made him believe that he was as great as his followers thought he was. Cobra Commander finally found a town that seemed to be made for him in a town known as Springfield. Now, Springfield had been a decent little town, but its businesses were failing and its people were becoming disillusioned. And so Cobra Commander came in and started a multi-level marketing company, something we might call a pyramid scheme, and was careful to avoid the US government. Soon, he was able to corrupt the entire town and became, in a sense, their savior, founding a secret organization with its goal to wrap around the entire world just like a giant cobra. It's more like a python, but you get the idea. And at the center of all this was Cobra Commander. His growing ego turned him into a megalomaniac. He now believed his own lies. And at his core, the commander was a radical who wanted to be able to make money, free from government oversight, and then hoard military-grade weapons in order to protect himself against anyone who wanted to take his money away. He was also a master of disguise and has appeared as a goatee artist-looking kind of man. And his appearance constantly changing leaves him assumed to wear masks, and the Cobra Commander can even keep his identity from the people who were closest to him. The Cobra Army was also a way to have both financial and military power, since politics were not going to work for a man who kept his mask on to hide his identity. By 1982, Cobra was an international organization, and Cobra agents were spread throughout the entire Third World using terrorism to control the foreign governments. In the G.I. Joe animated movie, which was released in 1987, Cobra Commander's history takes on a completely different story. There, he was a nobleman of a secret prehistoric society called Cobra Law, and it was a horrible scientific accident that drove him to wear the mask or the hood of Cobra Commander. And it was because of that laboratory accident that he became a many-eyed, blue-skinned snake man after studying a strange plant which sprayed his face with spores that would mutate him, causing him to grow an array of eyes around his face. I mean, he was part of an ancient serpent type of race that predated man, which would explain why we watch in the cartoons why he is constantly hissing as he spoke.
Oh, I'd say they all know that, and it doesn't frighten them in the least.
And so Cobra Commander was considered to be the chosen one out of Cobra Law to go out into the world and to bring down the human race so that their serpent race could reign again. In the first season of the original 1980s Sunbow animated series, Cobra Commander is the leader of Cobra, and his face is always covered. But his personality, even though it's extremely immature, childish, and cowardly, and just prone to throwing tantrums at his own failure and leaving all of his soldiers behind in the midst of battle. Now, going back to the figure, remember, Cobra Commander was only available as a mail-away figure. After collecting about 5 flag points and about 50 cents for shipping, you would have to wait 6 to 8 weeks for your figure to show up in the mail. Right? That seemed like an eternity, but you waited every day for that figure to show up in the mail. Cobra Commander came with that blank, silver painted face. And this is one of those features that makes finding a good figure of Cobra Commander so hard. That silver paint usually rubbed off pretty easily, and what young boy wouldn't have some wear and tear on his soldiers or his figures? But at the same time, it gave Cobra Commander that sinister look. You can't see his facial expressions. You can't know what he's really feeling. And when we see Cobra Commander and the abilities that he has behind that faceplate shown in some of the cartoons, we know that he is able to emit gas that will cause his opponents to choke or not be able to see him. It also gave off electrical shocks to somebody who may be touching it or trying to grab him by his mask. And when we saw a view behind the mask during one of the episodes, it reveals that there is an intricate amount of machinery that is built in to that faceplate. When we look at the uniform that Cobra Commander is wearing, he proudly wears that Cobra logo or sigil on anything that is under his command. It's on vehicles, it's on clothing, it's on anything that he could possibly have. You will find the Cobra logo on there. He also has a red stripe down the side of his leg, which is also another area where the paint could rub off pretty easily by being handled and played with too much. On the other leg, he has a knife or a dagger that is strapped to that leg, and the handle looks to be a bit of a ceremonial type handle that we never actually get to see in action. But the dagger does look like something similar to a German-like dagger that was used back in World War II. On the back of Cobra Commander is a box with circles or shapes around to imply some kind of function with that box, but we're never really told what it is. Now, Cobra Commander does come what's known as a Venom laser pistol, and it fits perfectly in this box-shaped backpack, and some say that that box actually charges his Venom laser pistol. This is very different. Everything we've looked at so far, and from the majority of what we will see, everybody's using machine guns or just regular handheld guns with bullets. Here we're finding the first in our series of a laser pistol.
That is disgusting!
And the overall color of Cobra Commander's uniform is this light shade of blue. And it's lighter than the other Cobra soldiers and officers, which really helps him stand out when he's put together with his minions. So this first year of G.I. Joe, Cobra didn't receive any vehicles, and so what we will constantly see with Cobra Commander and his soldiers, that they're in the commercials, they're constantly having to steal G.I. Joe vehicles, and it was Cobra Commander usually the one doing the stealing. And so it was very hard for Cobra to get started in the reality of the toys that were being released at that time. Cobra Commander absolutely is one of the icons. It is one of the must-haves if you're going to have a G.I. Joe collection. And he is hard to find, at least in a decent shape. But he is the face and the personality behind the enemies of G.I. Joe. And this is why he is such a big character. And I also believe it is why he is such a complex character with so many different backgrounds. Now, he does have other backgrounds. He does have more to the story, but we're going to stop it here for the 1982 version. He does have other versions. Up to about 52 versions of Cobra Commander have been released so far, and so we're going to save a little bit more of the rest of his story until we get to those versions will come out in later years. So until then, thank you for watching. I hope this was enjoyable for you. But what do you think? What have you heard about Cobra Commander? What was new for you in learning about Cobra Commander? Again, we don't necessarily know who he is underneath that mask, depending on if you're looking at the comic version or the cartoon version, or later on when we get to the movie versions. There's different backstories all in all. I personally really enjoy the comic book version, but I grew up with the cartoon version, and so it was brand new for me to go back and review all of these new facts about Cobra Commander. And so it's just one of those stories that just does not stop and continues to go on and can go as deep as you'd like to get, or as complex as you really want to make it. So anyway, hope this was enjoyable for you. I hope you come back for the next one and go back and watch our previous episodes. But today we are stopping with Cobra Commander. We'll continue with our episode in alphabetical order in the year of 1982 until we complete them all. So hope to see you then. Thanks again for watching, and Yo Joe, we'll see you soon.